They didn't just shoot a movie in Los Angeles. They hijacked it. In 1985, when most action films were content to follow rules, both legal and cinematic, William Friedkin returned with a film that treated rules like targets. To Live and Die in L.A. wasn't just a cop thriller. It was a full-throttle collision between law enforcement, counterfeiting, and the American obsession with control. But while the plot followed a Secret Service agent chasing a counterfeiter, what unfolded behind the camera was often stranger and more dangerous than what made it to the screen. Shot on real locations without permits, featuring a wrong-way freeway chase that nearly ended in disaster, and driven by a pulsating synth soundtrack from a British pop band with zero film experience, this movie blurred the line between narrative and reality. Friedkin didn't just direct, he provoked, manipulated, and sometimes risked the lives of his cast and crew to capture the fever-dream paranoia of Reagan-era Los Angeles. But here's the thing, some of the most radical choices in this film weren't even legal, and some of its darkest moments weren't fiction. How much of To Live and Die in L.A. was staged? And how much was just caught on tape? These are 20 weird facts you didn't know about To Live and Die in L.A., a film that never asked for permission, and certainly didn't care about forgiveness. Fact 1. The wrong-way freeway chase wasn't just real, it was illegal. Most car chases in movies feel choreographed, almost balletic. But the one in To Live and Die in L.A. doesn't. It feels wrong, off-kilter, dangerous. That's because it was. William Friedkin, never one to favor safety over adrenaline, wanted a chase scene that felt like a breakdown in order, like the city itself was turning against the characters. So he staged a 5-minute freeway sequence where the heroes drive against traffic on the I-710 inches Los Angeles, without permits, without road closures, and without notifying the city. It wasn't just a cinematic risk. It was a legal one. The crew filmed early in the morning to avoid detection. Look closely, and you'll see real commuters swerving out of the way, unaware they were part of a movie. The production used minimal signage, some spotters, and a whole lot of luck. One miscalculation, one inattentive driver, and the scene could have ended in death. But the madness didn't stop there. Friedkin had instructed his editor to cut the chase with jagged rhythms, intentionally breaking continuity to make it feel disorienting. It shouldn't look clean, he said. It should feel like you're dying second by second. Ironically, that choice, along with the raw footage, would later be studied in driving schools and law enforcement training as an example of how not to behave. Friedkin made chaos look so good, some mistook it for choreography. Was it art or criminal endangerment disguised as cinema? Fact 2. The lead actor got replaced. After shooting began, most directors wait until casting is locked before they roll camera. William Friedkin? Not quite. Initially, the role of Secret Service agent Richard Chance wasn't played by William Peterson. It was handed to another actor, a bigger name at the time. The original actor had already started working on the film when Friedkin suddenly felt something was off. He wasn't feeling the desperation, the volatility. The character wasn't unhinged enough. So Friedkin did something few directors dare to do mid-production. He fired his lead. William Peterson, a then unknown Chicago stage actor, got the call. With zero film experience, he flew to LA, jumped into a high-octane set already in motion, and started shooting. His first scene? Holding a gun to a suspect's head. There was no time to adjust, no room for doubt. What's eerie is how the urgency bled into the performance. Peterson played Chance like a man whose nerves were constantly exposed because they were. Even Friedkin later admitted that the real-time instability added texture to the character. But to this day, neither Friedkin nor the studio has officially named the original actor who was let go. So who was he? And how close did we come to a very different To Live and Die in LA? Fact 3. Wang Chung had never scored a film, but Friedkin didn't care. William Friedkin could have hired any seasoned composer in Hollywood. Instead, he picked a British pop band best known for synth-heavy dance tracks. Why? Because he thought they sounded like Moral Decay. Wang Chung had never scored a film. Their biggest hit at the time was a dance track called Dance Hall Days. But Friedkin wasn't looking for filmic polish. He wanted menace. He wanted LA to throb, not sing. So he handed Wang Chung a copy of the script and told them, "Don't write music for scenes. Write music for the soul of the movie." The result was a full original soundtrack composed before filming even began. Most directors cut to music. Friedkin did the opposite. He cut the film to Wang Chung's beats. The movie's tempo, mood shifts, and sudden bursts of violence were built around the music's pulse. Critics were split. Some called the score intrusive, others said it was the best part of the film, but Friedkin insisted it was the only way to make To Live and Die in LA feel contemporary and chaotic. He didn't want it to sound like a movie. He wanted it to sound like danger. And it worked. The soundtrack became a cult item revered by fans of both film noir and new wave. Not bad for a band that had never even set foot in a sound mixing booth. Could any traditional composer have matched that raw synthetic dread? Fact 4. The opening scene was based on a real agent's death. The film opens with a Secret Service agent getting blown apart while trying to stop a terrorist with explosives strapped to his body. It's sudden, brutal, almost theatrical. But what's unnerving is that it was inspired by a real incident. During Friedkin's early research, he interviewed multiple agents, including those in the Los Angeles field office. One of them recounted the loss of a colleague, a bomb technician, who approached a suspect without backup, believing he had the situation under control. The suspect detonated himself. There were no remains to recover. Friedkin was disturbed and fixated. He asked for more details. The surviving agents were hesitant, but one finally said, "He just disappeared." That phrase stuck. It was less about the body, more about the ripple. How one moment of confidence turned into permanent silence. Friedkin rewrote the film's cold open the same night. What makes it more chilling is how clinically the scene plays out. No melodrama, no slow motion, just a man walking toward a ticking body, and then obliteration. It wasn't an exaggeration. If anything, Friedkin toned it down. Fact 5. Friedkin made the actors perform their own stunts or quit. Stunt doubles are standard in Hollywood, not in To Live and Die in L.A. Friedkin had a rule. If you can't do it yourself, don't do it at all. When William Peterson asked if they'd be using a double for a rooftop chase scene, Friedkin told him, "You're a federal agent, you run like one. Or, I find someone else." Peterson trained for 2 weeks straight, vaulting fences, leaping between buildings, running on uneven rooftops until he could perform the scene himself. But it wasn't just physical. Actors had to fire real guns loaded with blanks, rehearse with real-life counterfeiters, and endure interrogation simulations. Friedkin wasn't after safety, he was after psychological truth. The set became a pressure cooker. One actor quit, another broke an ankle and kept filming. Peterson later said he didn't know where he ended and his character began. Friedkin didn't want performers. He wanted controlled adrenaline in a human body. Fact 6. The counterfeiting wasn't just accurate, it was illegal. Most movies fake money using oversized bills, incorrect portraits, or washed-out ink to avoid legal trouble. To Live and Die in L.A. didn't bother with that. Friedkin hired a real former counterfeiter, one who had served time for consultation. But the expert didn't just consult. He supervised the printing of prop bills using authentic paper stock, real inks, and techniques that mirrored federal operations. The scenes where Willem Dafoe's character prints money, that's real process, captured on film. And then came the problem. Someone on the crew used one of the fake bills at a gas station. The Secret Service got involved. They confiscated thousands of dollars in fake currency from the set. A formal investigation followed. Friedkin had to prove the intent was cinematic, not criminal. Even then, the studio narrowly avoided prosecution. Was the scene too real, or was reality simply catching up to Friedkin's obsession? Fact 7. The film was almost rated X because of one scene. When To Live and Die in L.A. was submitted to the MPAA. The board didn't flinch at the car chases, the gunfire, or even the counterfeiting. What stopped them cold was a single scene, a graphic sex sequence between William Peterson and Darlene Flugel. The scene wasn't romantic, it was transactional, clinical. There was dominance, power imbalance, and an uncomfortable realism that felt more like surveillance than storytelling. Friedkin insisted it was essential that Chance wasn't in a relationship, he was exerting control. But the MPAA disagreed. They slapped the film with an initial X rating. The studio panicked. Friedkin didn't. He refused to cut the scene entirely but agreed to trim a few frames, literally milliseconds of thrusts and shadows. It was just enough to earn an R. Years later, Friedkin reflected, what disturbed them wasn't sex. It was the implication that there was no love involved. He wasn't wrong. So what does it say when simulated violence is fine, but simulated emotional detachment isn't? Fact 8. Willem Dafoe designed his own character's painting. Willem Dafoe's counterfeiter isn't just a criminal, he's a failed artist. His studio, littered with half-burned canvases and harsh abstract pieces, reflects a mind unraveling. But here's the twist. Those weren't props. Dafoe asked Friedkin if he could design and paint his own character's artwork. Friedkin, intrigued, said yes. Dafoe threw himself into it. He researched Los Angeles art collectives, spent nights in downtown studios, and created pieces that felt manic and hostile. Each canvas had a story. One was slashed mid-stroke, another drowned in black lacquer, They weren't for show, they were expressions of the character's decay. Friedkin was so impressed, he reblocked scenes to highlight the work. It made the character breathe differently, he said. So when you see Defoe brooding in front of a chaotic canvas, you're not just watching a scene, you're watching the actor's psychological fingerprint bleed onto the wall. How many villains literally painted their own descent? Fact 9. The final scene was rewritten because test audiences were too quiet. Originally, the film ended with a slow, silent fade-out. No music, no resolution, just Defoe's character dead. The counterfeit operation dismantled, and everything emotionally hollow. Friedkin thought it was powerful. Test audiences thought it was unfinished. After multiple screenings, the studio begged him to reshoot. Not to add clarity, but to add shock. Friedkin compromised. Instead of clarity, he added ambiguity. In the final version, a new recruit enters the Secret Service office. He's cocky, reckless, and suddenly, you realize he's the new chance. The cycle continues. Corruption doesn't end, it just puts on a new face. It wasn't the ending Friedkin planned, but it was the ending the film earned, and ironically, it hit harder than silence ever could. Fact 10. A real Secret Service agent helped stage the raids. To create authenticity, most productions hire technical consultants, usually ex-cops or military vets. Friedkin went further. He brought in a current U.S. Secret Service agent, not retired, not anonymous. Active duty. The agent, whose name has never been officially released, advised on everything from body language to interrogation techniques. But it didn't stop there. Friedkin had him choreograph actual raids in the film, including the warehouse bust and the downtown foot chase. Every movement, shout, and firearm protocol mirrored how agents operated in the field. At one point, Friedkin even asked the agent to appear in a scene, disguised as a background officer. He declined. Too risky, he said, but I'll make sure your actors move like we do. What's eerie is how eerily procedural the action scenes feel. The hesitations, the angles of approach, the way suspects are handled. It doesn't feel like drama, it feels like evidence. And yes, the agent reportedly had to answer some difficult questions back in DC afterward. Fact 11. The film accidentally captured a real crime in progress. During a shoot on the outskirts of East LA, Friedkin's crew set up to film a nighttime stakeout scene. The location was chosen for its gritty authenticity, a vacant lot between two warehouses. The cameras rolled, the actors whispered. Then, a shadow darted across the frame. At first, the crew thought it was an extra arriving late. Then came the shouting. The man had broken into a parked car just off camera. It wasn't staged. It was a real car theft, unfolding as the scene played. The crew froze. The actors stayed in character. One of the PAs, an off-duty LAPD volunteer, alerted local police. The thief was arrested minutes later, oblivious he'd been caught on film. Friedkin kept the footage, though it never made it into the final cut. He later joked, "We were shooting fiction, and the city gave us a documentary." In To Live and Die in LA, even the accidents felt designed. Fact 12. Friedkin refused to use storyboards, and it drove the crew mad. Most directors walk onto set with a plan. Friedkin often walked in with a smirk. He famously refused to use storyboards for the majority of the film. "If I know exactly what it looks like before I shoot it," he said, "why bother showing up?" Instead, he preferred to discover angles on the day of shooting, reacting to locations, light, and the actor's instincts in real time. Cinematographers called it organized chaos. Set decorators begged for direction. One gaffer said working with Friedkin was like wiring a house during an earthquake. But the results speak for themselves. The camera movements feel restless, impulsive, mirroring the character's paranoia. A static frame becomes kinetic, not through effects, but through gut-driven adjustments made minutes before action was called. In one rooftop scene, Friedkin abruptly switched the direction of the sun for continuity, forcing the lighting crew to re-rig in 12 minutes. He didn't apologize, and no, the studio didn't appreciate it. But they didn't stop him either, because when chaos works, it looks like intention. Fact 13. The airport scene was shot during real operations without permission. One of the tensest scenes in To Live and Die in LA unfolds at LAX, where federal agents trail a suspect through terminals, tarmacs, and parking structures. It's claustrophobic, hyper-real, and completely unauthorized. The production team had requested a permit to film in restricted zones. The airport authority denied it. Friedkin, unfazed, told his crew to dress in civilian clothes, carry concealed cameras, and film the scene during actual airport operations. They didn't shut down anything. They didn't warn anyone. Passengers, airport staff, even TSA equivalents appear in the background, unaware they're in a movie. The tension on screen, not acting. The actors were told, "If anyone asks, you're part of a student project." Astonishingly, they got away with it, but not without cost. 2 camera operators were briefly detained by airport security. One was nearly charged with impersonating law enforcement. Friedkin considered it a success. "We caught the unease of surveillance culture," he said, "but if someone had panicked, the scene might have ended with real siren." Fact 14. The film reused blood packs because they ran out of budget. By the 3rd week of shooting, To Live and Die in L.A. was burning through its budget. Most of it had gone into car crashes, insurance, and last-minute location bribes. So when it came time for gunfights and executions, there was a problem. They ran out of squibs and blood packs. Rather than halt production, Friedkin told the effects team to clean, dry, and reset used squibs. They reused torn shirts, refilled fake blood tubes. Actors had to hit their marks precisely because if a reused squib failed, they couldn't afford another take. One actor accidentally triggered a squib early. Friedkin didn't cut. He rewrote the scene on the spot to incorporate the misfire. What's remarkable is that you can't tell. The violence still feels raw, unpredictable, maybe because it was literally patched together from remnants. In the end, To Live and Die in L.A. didn't just make violence look cheap, it proved it was. Fact 15. An FBI agent warned Friedkin the film could inspire copycats. After a private screening for law enforcement officials, one FBI agent pulled Friedkin aside. He wasn't impressed. He was concerned. The agent believed the film's detailed depiction of counterfeit operations, complete with chemical ratios, printing techniques, and cash distribution methods, was dangerously accurate. "You didn't just make a thriller," he told Friedkin. "You made a training video." Friedkin disagreed. He argued that the audience wouldn't replicate what they feared. But in the weeks after the film's release, several cases of counterfeit busts on the West Coast involved techniques eerily similar to those shown in the movie. Coincidence? Maybe. But the Secret Service reportedly reviewed the film frame by frame, and internal memos warned agents about cinematic influence. In an ironic twist, To Live and Die in L.A. became the very thing it portrayed, a risk to federal control. So the question remains, where's the line between accuracy and ammunition? Fact 16. William Friedkin shot one scene in a real crack house. Set design can only do so much. To capture the underbelly of Los Angeles, Friedkin wanted something that didn't feel constructed. He wanted something that reeked of rot. So for one tense drug-related scene, instead of building a set or scouting a film-friendly location, Friedkin allegedly had his location manager find a functioning crack house in South Central L.A. No actors, no props, just the real thing. The crew was warned to bring minimal gear. The actors were told not to make eye contact with the actual inhabitants unless spoken to. They moved quickly, 2 takes, less than 15 minutes. No lighting setups, no permission. Just shadows, smoke, and whispered threats echoing from other rooms. Friedkin captured it all, including a moment where an off-camera argument causes one of the actors to visibly flinch. That take stayed in. The studio asked if the location was insured. Friedkin replied, "It was real. That's better than safe." Was it bravery or exploitation? Fact 17. The studio wanted a different title, and Friedkin refused. Before its release, To Live and Die in L.A. faced a problem. The title. Executives feared it was too bleak, too ambiguous, and wouldn't resonate with mainstream audiences. They floated alternatives like City of Shadows, The Counterfeit War, and Angels and Agents. Friedkin hated all of them. He argued that To Live and Die in L.A. wasn't just a title, it was the thesis. The city itself was the antagonist. Living there meant moral compromise. Dying there meant the city won. In a rare moment of defiance, Friedkin told the marketing team, "You change the title, you change the film, and I won't promote it." Faced with a PR disaster, the studio relented. The original title stayed. Ironically, the phrase which once sounded cryptic became iconic. Later referenced in music, television, and countless parodies, it entered the cultural bloodstream. Sometimes the most dangerous words are the ones that don't explain themselves. Fact 18. The actor who played the rookie was almost killed off until a last-minute rewrite. John Vukovic's character, the older, level-headed partner, dies partway through the film. The plan was for his replacement, the rookie, played by John Pankow, to also die before the final act. Friedkin wanted to underline the idea that the job consumes everyone. But during test screenings, something strange happened. Audiences latched onto Pankow's character. He was awkward, in over his head, and entirely human amid a sea of predators. His death didn't land as shocking, it landed as pointless, Friedkin noticed. For the first time in production, he hesitated. Instead of killing the rookie, he rewrote the third act. Pankow survives, but absorbs the recklessness of his predecessor. In the final scene, his smile mimics the dead agent's. A quiet transformation. It's more haunting than any body count. Because survival doesn't mean salvation, it means inheritance. Fact 19. The film's poster was banned in several cities. When To Live and Die in L.A. was preparing for release, the studio commissioned a stark poster, a man silhouetted against a blood-orange sky, counterfeit bills drifting like ash, and a tagline that read, "The Secret Service isn't just about protecting the president." It was striking. Too striking, apparently. Multiple cities, including Phoenix, Cincinnati, and parts of Boston, refused to display the poster on buses, subways, or government-owned property. Their reasoning? The imagery promoted government corruption and glorified crime. One local council member called it a billboard for nihilism. Another claimed the tagline undermined public trust. Friedkin, unsurprisingly, embraced the backlash. He called it free advertising, and the poster was quickly snatched up by collectors. But the controversy didn't stop there. Some independent theaters reported calls from local officials urging them not to screen the film. No legal threats, just quiet pressure. If Friedkin had aimed to provoke, the marketing team had accidentally weaponized his intent. So when a movie poster gets pulled from transit stations, does that mean the film hit too close to home? Fact 20. Friedkin hinted that the film has a secret alternate cut. No one's ever seen it. In a 2006 interview, long after the DVD release and critical reappraisal, Friedkin dropped a cryptic remark. While discussing the editing process, he said, "There's another version of the film, one that never screened, never released, but it exists." He never elaborated. When pressed, he deflected. Some believed he was referencing a rough assembly cut before test audiences. Others speculated it was a radically different version, with a bleaker ending, extended violence, or even an alternate narrative structure. No official record of this version has ever surfaced. No reels in the studio archive, no leaked scripts, just Friedkin's casual mention and silence. To this day, fans debate whether he was serious or just stirring the mythos. But for a filmmaker obsessed with control, chaos, and secrecy, a hidden cut feels all too plausible. And if it does exist, what did he see that made him lock it away? Bonus fact: the burning canvas was real and no one called cut. One of the most haunting images in To Live and Die in L.A. is almost easy to miss. A painting engulfed in flames, black smoke curling upward as Willem Dafoe's character watches silently. No words, no music, just crackling fire and absence. What most viewers don't know is that the painting was actually one of Dafoe's own one he'd spent several days working on for his character's arc. It wasn't a prop, it was a personal creation. Friedkin didn't tell him it would be burned. The scene was shot in a single take. Dafoe had been instructed to improvise a moment of emotional collapse. Instead of breaking something or yelling, he calmly lit the match, placed it under the edge of the canvas, and stepped back. No one expected it. The camera kept rolling. Crew members hesitated, unsure if it was planned. No one called cut. The studio went up in smoke along with a piece of the actor's psyche. When the shot finally ended, Friedkin walked over and whispered, "That's the film." It wasn't a stunt. It was destruction as expression. Some say it was performance art. Others say it was the character consuming the artist. Either way, that image, quiet, final, irreversible, says more about To Live and Die in L.A. than any line of dialogue. Because sometimes, to show loss, you have to set something real on fire. Which fact made you pause the longest? The illegal freeway chase? The uncut destruction? Or the possibility of a version we'll never see? Tell us in the comments which moment blurred the line between fiction and recklessness, and what film you think deserves this kind of deep excavation next.